Phoenix is a bit trickier with speed because there's not enough room of opportunity to do the damage. Okay, that was good damage. Hey guys, in this video I want to talk about my cold Smite Slayer with the Rakiata's Dance Sword that inverts resistances, and this is gonna be a full build guide video, but I haven't really done too many endgame bosses. In fact, I haven't really done many endgame bosses. I just used this for farming tier 16. I mainly focus on blight. On expedition, it's very satisfying to click Val Smite in the expedition and seeing all the enemies like just kind of explode. Kind of the first thing I also want to mention, I'm using Automaton Held of Ice effect, which in my opinion is one of the coolest looking, and that's what the explosion, I think it's green color, is. Now this build doesn't really have many defensive layer. It does have a couple small defensive layer, but the main way I'm surviving is basically getting enough speed and then freezing enemies. I did a very similar build with Glacial Cascade Raider a couple weeks ago, I think, and that one worked on a same principle, just be fast and freeze enemies. This one doesn't have as good freeze, but the advantage I guess is that I can use Val Smite, which kind of blows up the whole screen. Now, if you want to know my opinion early on about Rakiata's Dance, I think it's pretty cool, but it is a bit disappointing that it doesn't work with spells or like Herald of Thunder, sadly. And I may be the only one who thinks that it's crazy that one small letter in the whole sentence changes how the function even works. Now, this line for Rakiata's Dance treats enemy monster elemental resistances values as inverted. This only applies to the sword hits. Now we have elemental mastery, which says pretty much exactly the same thing, but it says like 25% chance to treat enemy monster elemental resistances values as inverted. And I think I'm probably the only one that thinks that this is crazy, that one letter changes, that the mastery works for spells, but this doesn't work. You just add S and now whoop, it doesn't work for spells. So I was very disappointed that it doesn't work for spells, because Battle Mage could be cool. Even a Herald of Thunder, I like Herald of Thunder builds that could bring a kind of new, well, maybe it wouldn't be that great, but Battle Mage could still be great with this, but it doesn't work, sadly. That's why I think that Rakiata's Dance could have been better, and inverting enemy resistances is very useful. We don't have good ways of increasing monster elemental resistances. We can run maps that have increased elemental resistances for monsters, and that works great. By the way, Rakiata's Dance does not work in PvP at all, because players are not monsters, and this only works against monsters, it seems. So I assume Hall of Grandmaster wouldn't really be very good for this. Another thing, this build is kind of cheap-ish if you don't count the 6-link for Rakiata's Dance. It doesn't need to be 6-link Rakiata's Dance, can also be 6-link armor, but I would rather get a 6-link item that is already kind of expensive to begin with, rather than trying to 6-link a cheap item. I bought a bunch of items that I thought I'm gonna be replacing, some rare items that I thought I'm gonna be replacing, but I just kept going and it just kept working fine, and I did not replace them. So this build could be done on a budget, and it is using a couple of the budget items like Utula's Hunger. I believe the price is still pretty cheap. You do want a high roll maximum life, so it's like 40 years. And I really like this body armor. This build was failing quite a lot because I just could not get enough life. Currently I have 5.7 thousand life, and it's enough. I could not get enough life with this build because of the way I kind of planned and the items that I wanted to use. So my only option was to use this one and then just avoid getting any life modifiers on my other items. So if you look at my gloves, we look kind of really bad. We don't have any life, we barely have resistances. Taming ring is also giving a lot of damage, and it doesn't have any life modifiers. Heatshiver also a lot of damage, especially if you can proc freeze. Some bosses cannot fully be frozen, but you can still proc freeze on them, so you can still trigger this modifier. Finding rare items that have good modifiers that don't have life or open prefix is actually pretty cheap, and I made a video about what's unique about this unique Utula's Hunger. And I mentioned that this body armor is like really good because you can get really good rares that don't have life and still get good life in the end. By the way, in path of building, it is currently bugged, and I had to modify the body armor itself to just give flat life. Later I hope that PoB is gonna get fixed. It currently doesn't quite work. For example, putting Siege and Vice is fine, but as soon as you put in Jewel inside PoB, a beast Jewel with life, it kind of disables the body armor because it counts that Jewel as being part of the equipment. But in game it's not. In game it works properly. So yeah, another thing, I managed to reach like 4.5 million DPS. That is with only 15% chill and 15% shock. Like if you max it out, you're gonna get quite a bit more damage. But I don't want to max it out because it doesn't really guarantee those kind of numbers against tougher targets. However, I do have is enemy frozen checked in, so this does give a lot of damage. Without it, it's like 3.2 million DPS, and that's with only one flask active. I don't have any awakened gems. With more budget, you can definitely squeeze out a lot more damage out of this. As for the extra kind of small defensive things, I am using Flesh and Stone. This is only in sand stance, never change it. Nearby enemies are blinded, and you take less damage from enemies that are not nearby. And then also Defiance Banner just gives a tiny bit of armor and evasion, just very tiny. And also nearby enemies have less reduced critical strike chance. I do have quite a bit of unreserved mana, and I probably could squeeze in something else. Maybe even could squeeze in Determination with a bit more levels and getting a small cluster jewel here with Determination and Reservation efficiency. I don't have Helmet Enchantment, so you could also get Helmet Enchantment and squeeze in Determination if you really want to. Although I do think that Flesh and Stone is pretty nice because the main problem I had, like when leaping around, leap next to enemy pack and they start hitting me, start stunning me, and I just die. If that starts happening, you definitely need to add Flesh and Stone and get more attack speed. And also try to attack enemies from like a further distance because you can attack enemies from quite far away with Smite and extra strike targets. Also, I'm only using Ancestral Protector, and it is mainly to get attack speed. Attack speed is very important for this, because without enough attack speed, it's not gonna feel great when enemies hit you before you can hit them, because this build is not tanky. You have to be able to hit enemies before they hit you. Using Flesh and Stone is pretty important, I would say, and also, unless you got Determination, but I would rather not take any damage at all. Stun is a bit of a problem. I do have the Soul of the Brand King, and it's very important to get chance to avoid being frozen upgrade. I do like using this one so that when enemies shock me, I don't like get 50% shock on me and start taking 50% increased damage. And I do have like reduced effect of chill. Whenever you get slowed down, it feels really bad. Really bad, because your main defense is kind of freezing enemies. And also try to avoid enemies cannot be frozen. Expeditions, for example, those can be bad. As for the map modes, as always, don't run early reflect. Avoid elemental ailments isn't that bad, but I would rather avoid that. And also cannot leech, avoid those map modes, because this is Slayer. Slayer really needs leech, and that's kind of one way of adding a bit of tankiness with this one. Now, as for the supports, I am running Val Smite linked to elemental damage of attacks, Inspiration, Trinity, Volatility, and Hypothermia. I wanted to try Multi-Strike. Multi-Strike would not affect Val Smite because Multi-Strike cannot support Val skills. And Multi-Strike may actually feel better because it would give you speed, so you would be able to strike enemies sooner when you encounter them. And you may not get stunned. You may avoid dying if you use Multi-Strike. Multi-Strike doesn't benefit Val Smite, and I just wanted like strong Val Smite. I don't need much conversion because the weapon doesn't have a lot of physical damage. So I do not pay too much attention to the conversion. And besides, Smite does have 50% conversion anyway. So you don't need to worry about converting damage because most of the damage is coming from flat damage, flat cold damage and lightning damage from the weapon itself. The weapon will invert monster resistances even for fire resistance. So Heatshiver just works really well. Now Eye of Malice I think is not worth using, I don't have it, but Eye of Malice increases monster fire and cold resistance. And it's not really worth it only for the cold resistance. You do not want to lower enemy resistances. You don't want exposure because inverting is gonna happen after exposure. So there are stronger helmets, and the Heatshiver I think is probably one of the stronger helmets if you use cold damage. And because, like I said, you invert all the resistances with the sword, it works just really well, because you don't need to get extra penetration. You can still get penetration. Well, I do have penetration from Trinity, and that is all. And Trinity is pretty strong, Now I'm also using Vengeance. It's not needed, but I like having Vengeance with Life Leech and Pulverize, so it's like bigger AoE. It hits pretty hard. Even if I get stunned or frozen, I can still kind of counterattack and possibly even kill enemies, or just at least get Leech to get more tankiness. Ancestral Protector is mainly for the buff. I'm just using Assassin's Mark with Mark on hit. It's not even actually quality. I recently added Frost Bomb. If you encounter enemies with a big region that stand on like consecrated ground and they have like something to make your damage less, it's just so bad trying to kill those enemies. So if you can carry at least Frost Bomb, there's a Mark Mastery, but I was getting the Mark Mastery for the Frenzy generation, so I couldn't get it. But if you can get marked enemies cannot regenerate life, that would completely stop their regen. It would be better because I like running a lot of expeditions. So I'm gonna finish about auras. Defiance banner, like I said, precision, which gives a lot of crit chance, and accuracy, and Herald of Ice. So because I like running a lot of expeditions and blight, I did want to actually get anti-block. The better anti-block mastery would be on the attack mastery. The fed from the bottom monsters cannot block your attacks like completely. That would be great, but I also needed this non-val strike skills, target one additional nearby enemy, and then get that as well on the gloves implicit. The conversion on the gloves is not necessary. You can also get just flat cold damage, but I got block mastery on sword mastery, or should I say I got the anti-block on sword mastery, 50% reduced enemy block, and Expedition really likes to spawn enemies with the block chance, and it's so annoying to deal with them. So getting that mastery if you're doing a lot of expedition is, I think, worth it. And otherwise, getting this crit chance, 120 crit chance with -20 crit multi is also more DPS increase. Even right now I have 100% crit chance or 98 crit chance. So if I were to remove this, as you can see, I am losing a bit. So depending on your crit chance, you may want to grab this early on. Everything that gives attack speed is gonna be good. You want attack speed and possibly accuracy, because you can also get accuracy on gloves, but that shares affixes with the resistances, and you're probably gonna need some resistances. And then on the medium jewels, I went with the critical jewels. So this is like basic of pain and quick getaway. Those are the cheapest ones. Also got adrenaline, a bit more attack speed. I was planning on getting a second one, but I feel like this amount of life is plenty and I don't need more. I will include a path of building import code in the description. So yeah, that pretty much covers this build. I already decided my next build. I'm gonna attempt to do Hidden Blade, dual Hidden Blade. Hidden Blade kind of got changed. It no longer has a cooldown. It now is a trigger rate, so you can actually dual wield them. And that build will probably have like really bad damage, like 500,000 DPS, but it may be fun because of all the projectiles, with the returning projectiles and then the split projectiles. So that's gonna be my next build. So for now, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.